All right, everyone. So I'm going to start with creating an Omeka site. So I dropped the login so you can create your own site, with your email. If you didn't get it right now, that's okay. You can just sit back, relax, and watch. This is also just kind of a step-by-step that you can use on how to create a page. This is what your backend is going to look like once you created your account. You're going to click my account and add a site. And once you have add a site, you're going to create the subdomain name. So I created a sample one called USLDH workshop. So that's what I called it all together. It'll be that.omeka.net. And then a site title, the title that you want to actually come out. And this can be like test. You can just do this one for testing, right? And then the description would be an actual description of the site. Again, if you're doing it right now, you can just put test. It's fine. Okay, once you do that, you can go in to manage the site, and it's going to take you to this dashboard. And this is where you do all the work. This is all the hidden stuff. The front end will look like this. And so I've already loaded stuff in here, but yours would be blank. But this is called the back end. This is the dashboard. And so the very first thing you're going to do is, as Linda had mentioned, you're going to organize your sources, what you're going to put into, what data you're going to put into the Omeka. And so, of course, you're going to go back to the Excel sheet. And so we use Google Sheets a lot, especially if we're more than one person is working on it. It's a great way to share, especially right now where we're collaborating across distance. And we created this sheet, which you can find again in the folder that has these what's called Dublin Core item descriptions. And these are in Omeka too. I'll show you in a second. So you don't have to memorize these, but you could just, copy them from Google Docs. You can also create this on your own page or on your own machine, like on your own laptop. You can just use Excel or you can use numbers. And you're going to start categorizing the items that you're going to put into Omeka. So for example, we have these 4 items here. And we organize, these are newspaper articles from recovery collections. I got the title. This is just like the title of the article. The creators, that's the author. So sometimes you know the author and then sometimes you don't. So this one is unknown. This is not the person who is creating the data. So it's the author or the photographer or the artist. A short description, just the way you do in library descriptions. You don't want to give them a whole essay. You just want to kind of give them a little morsel so that they know what this is about. Subject. The subject headings are Library of Congress subject headings. So we get these from the Library of Congress website where you can actually search. So you might have to do a little bit of research to figure out which subject headings fit your item best. Date, and you're going to decide for your own project how you're going to display the date. Here I did month, date, year, but on our official Omeka, we actually have year, month, date. Type, is it a text? Is it a still image? Is it a video? And the format is what the file format is. Is it a PDF? Is it a JPEG? Is it a MP4, etc.? Now the identifier is something that you're going to have to come up with. You're going to come up with a standard for your whole collection. I know sometimes when we save files on our computer, we come up with, these really long names and they're not necessarily standard. I mean, if you think about all the PDFs you save, all your articles, how are you naming them? Are they a random number? Are they the title? Are they the author? You have to come up with something standard. And so for this one, because we call this the Film and Press Collection, I'm calling it FIP. and I'm giving it this long number. So this is the first one, this is the second one, this is the third one, so that I know that all of these are related. These are all part of the same collection. If I had a different collection, I would come up with a different identifier number. So I'd come up with like a different code to use to abbreviate. So this is completely up to you. You will have to create a standard. And I strongly suggest while you're doing this, and this is something we do at Recovery all the time, is write a journal. Keep a daily or weekly journal where you document all these decisions. So we decided to name files according to this pattern. And then the source is where that comes from. So you want to let people know where they can find the original. This one was from La Prensa, which is the San Antonio newspaper, and it is in Redux, which is part of Newsbank. It's called America's Historical Newspapers by Recovery. So I want to point people in that direction. I've got the language. If it's an image, you might not have a language, so you can just leave it blank. And the publisher is the original publisher. The original publisher of this newspaper article was La Prensa. If I had a secondary author, if I had a translator, I would include them under contributor. Sometimes we'll have like legal documents where someone prepared the legal document and then another person like co-signed it. So they would be a contributor because they're not the main author. Relation is if there is another document or another item that is related to this item. So if I had a pair of letters, maybe one receiving and the response, I would probably put that here because I want people to look at the other letter too. If you're using something from the motion picture archive, you want to point them in the direction of that larger archive too. If there was a collection in special collections, then I would include that here so that they know, like whoever's looking at it knows where to find it. But also yourself, like maybe you don't have a good scan of it and you're like, oh, where did I find this? You want to be able to know where to turn back to. Coverage is the physical location that's mentioned, or geographic location. So is this about San Antonio? Is it about Houston, Texas? Is it about Texas in general? It just kind of is another way to enter into that text or to give people an idea what that text or item is about. Now, tags are keywords. You would come up with your own way of doing this as well. For us, we've decided to use the tags to include Spanish and include things that are left out of the Library of Congress subject headings. So sometimes we don't find something that really describes an item, especially when you're working with underrepresented archives. You'll notice that the Library of Congress tends to be very Eurocentric, very American focused, very Anglo-English centered. And so maybe you don't find something that really describes your item, but you want people to still find it. This helps with discoverability. Again, you decide how you want to create those tags. Maybe you want to come up with like the list ahead of time of tags that you would use. And so this one, for example, I did cine, which is film in Spanish. And then the rights are important too. You need to give credit to whoever owns the rights to that. Okay, so do I have any questions with the Google spreadsheet?
So far, no. I haven't seen. All right. Yeah.
Okay, so once I have that, I'm going to, oops, I'm in the wrong one. I'm actually gonna download this. I would make a CSV sheet. If you're doing it in Excel or in Numbers on your laptop, the same thing, you would want to save it as a CSV. And what's really important about this is that it tells the computer how to read the values in the cells. Because it's a CSV, that means you cannot use semicolons in your document because the computer will read a semicolon as a row. So for example, this one, motion pictures, I actually have, or sorry, this one, Isabela Corona, has 2 subject headings. So I'm going to actually use semicolons here purposefully because I want the computer to know, or Omeka to know, that these are 2 separate entries under subject. If I put a semicolon in the description, you would create 2 description fields rather than 1 sentence. Okay. So once I have that, I'm gonna set it up here. I'm gonna use the CSV import. And this is a plugin that comes with Omeka, so you can actually choose what plugins that you can activate or not activate. I strongly recommend CSV import because if you're working with like 100 documents, it's a lot easier to upload your CSV versus adding stuff individually. I think I skipped ahead of myself. I apologize. I have, just so you know which ones I used, I installed the CSV import, the exhibit builder, the LC Suggest, which is Library of Congress for the subject headings, gives you like a drop down. And I did simple pages, which means I can add additional pages on the front end of the site. But you can play with them. There's descriptions on the Omeka page. Unfortunately, they don't have like live views of them, but you can look at their gallery and see other sites that are using these different plugins. If you did the paid site, or if you did a larger Omeka site where you downloaded it onto a server, you could actually have access to more plugins than this. All right, so I'm going to show you that Dublin Core.
Lore, can I just say, like, this is a perfect time to become very friendly with your librarian who might be a digital humanities specialist or digital specialist. Start identifying who these people are at your university. We create a list of all these people at our university so that whenever people reach out to us, we can put them in touch with them, establish a relationship with them. And also tutorials. There's the Q&A, what is I'm sorry, all the how to troubleshoot, right? And Omeka has that, and they're very responsive. Anything else, Lore or Linda?
Yeah, there's a question. So the question is, if you want to add pieces manually or individually, is CSV still suggested? It's a very good question.
If you were going to do them manually, or individually, I would do them manually, which I've done as well. I've done like a big group, and then I've had to go back and do individual ones. So I think it's better to do it individually, but I would still add it to your CSV so that you can have it all together. So it still needs to be on your CSV. You need to keep that CSV. That's great for you knowing where everything is, what all the data is, in case there's, I don't know, some huge disaster and you like lose data, like if you did have it on a server. So the one that I had y'all sign up for is in the cloud, but the one that we have, we actually downloaded it. We bought a server and downloaded it on there so that we would have more space and that it would be in-house. So that's a decision that you would make. Yeah, so I would strongly suggest doing them individually if you were just gonna add like 1 or 2. And it's not a big deal if you're just doing, 3 or 4, you can do them individually, but I would still suggest creating that as the CSV. The one thing about the CSV is sometimes CSVs cause hiccups sometimes because if you're using Excel, you can't put in accents, because once you turn that Excel sheet into a CSV, it'll garble it. if you have a Mac and you use numbers, it will keep your accents. So that's one thing to keep in mind. I've also had issues where I download, it actually happened recently, where I downloaded, you know, this one from Google, and it was causing errors because even though there's nothing over here, the computer thought there was something in these cells. And so all I did was, you know, highlight them and hit delete, and then it worked. So sometimes there's a little bit of troubleshooting, and that's definitely something that, as Gabby mentioned, you can look on the Omeka forum and post a question, or, you know, check to see if anybody has posted about it. So one thing about the digital humanities for pretty much any software is always Google it, always check on YouTube and see if you can find the answer, because so many people have probably already posted about that. And then there were also lots of tutorials out there as well. So I didn't know anything about Omeka. I learned a lot, like most of it, from Googling, from looking at the forum, and then just playing with it. And I was lucky enough to work with the librarian who volunteered with us. And so she really helped with our determination of how to come up with these different, like what our standard was going to be for, like, how did we write the date, or how did we come up with titles, and, you know, use that in addition to the kind of recovery protocols that we already had going. So, so it's a great way to learn about these library standards as well. And so if you go to dashboard, I can show you how to add an item individually. And I'm gonna go through this a lot slower in a second. But if I add an item, here is where I can do it individually, and I get these text boxes where I can type in. And you can see up at the top where it tells you it's Dublin Core. It also has a link to more information about Dublin Core. So I invite you to click on that and you can read it, and they give you definitions and examples of what these different metadata element sets are. And Omeka already gives you like a little brief description here about what this is. So those are like two ways to research it. So if I were importing it from the CSV, okay, computer's going a little slow. I would click on CSV, I would have that active in the plugins. And then all I need to do is browse and look for the, let me find it. I would look for the CSV, open it, I would see it here. And you need to do the CSV upload in Firefox. So I've noticed it doesn't work in Chrome and it doesn't work in Safari. And I would select a collection, so I've created a collection. And I don't think that the default is set this way, but it's basically 1 comma and the rest are semicolons. And I'm not gonna go through it, but I would, because it might take a second. I put next, and then it would show me the status. And then I would like refresh this page, because it will tell me if it's queued or if it's in progress, and then I can just hit refresh and it'll tell me if it's completed. It'll also tell me any errors, like if it skipped items or skipped rows. If it skipped something, that means there's an error with the data, so you have to go back and check. And then you can also undo imports as well. Individual items, so I'm gonna go to one of these, I'll go to this one. So I got this one from the Media History Project. And I'll show you how I did that. So I go here and then I can look for anything here. So you can browse through the collection, but if you also search, you'll find a list of JPEGs. Okay, usually the thumbnail pops up. I think my computer.
Yeah, sorry about that. No, that's not your computer. The Internet Archive changed some things over on their servers, so we're playing catch up. And the beautiful thumbnails, some of them have been temporarily missing, but mark my words, they're coming back.
Okay, no worries then.
But there's ways, but actually, this is good in a way, because I know this is happening to other users too. And so, Lorena, could I suggest in that case you try clicking on what says read in context?
Yes.
There? Okay. And then when you're inside the book reader, all you need to do is right click on a page and you can save that image.
Oh, great.
Or copy it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then I'll save it as a JPEG?
That's right. That's
wonderful.
Right.
Okay, so then there's the way around it. Thank you so much for.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, I'm so glad that our search engine is kind of temporarily broken in some ways, so I could make that point.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I know you can also download the PDF. So, and like, this is like wonderful. I mean, that's another example of how sometimes you don't know how to do something and you can reach out and somebody else knows how to do it. So thank you so much. So I would copy and save that. And let's see. All right, so here's where I see all my metadata that was uploaded with the CSV. If I were going to add it manually, I would just type it in. And then if you have more than one thing, you actually have to add input here to get another text box. If you put it here with commas, it'll just be like a long list and you need them to separate out because they're different subject headings. And so once I have all the metadata in, I'm going to add the file. So you go to add to files, and then I would browse. I would look for the file, and then I would just add it. So I've already, and then it'll show up like this. And then save changes. And then I can decide whether I'm going to make this public or if I'm going to make this featured. Usually, if you're still working on something, you probably want to keep everything private until you're ready to publish it. So it's really easy, just toggle on off, and then you can add it to a collection. If you're working on a collection, you create collections the exact same way that you create an item. You just add the collection and then you're going to add all the metadata for that collection. And the same thing here, you can make it public or you can feature it. Feature just means it puts it in a more prominent location. Let me see if I can show you. So this is as a featured item. If I didn't have a featured item, it would just be blank. I could pick a different item as a featured item. You can only have one featured item and one featured collection or exhibit at a time. So this is something that you can circulate. All right, and then this is definitely a great student project that can take place throughout the entire semester. It's basically project-based learning because they would be learning about metadata, they would be learning how to do research and how to collect data, how to organize these assets, and then how to use Omeka itself, as well as like how to curate a collection, because you can't always put 1,000 things online unless you have the funding. But if you're a student and you're creating like a small project, then you might be limited. You'll have like a professor or educator you can let your class know you need to create 40 items and the CSV sheet, and you have to fill out all the metadata. And of course, sometimes you don't have, like I said, sometimes there's a few things that are missing. You might not know the creator, or you might not know the date. It's okay to leave those blanks. But that's just kind of like one of the scaffold things. You could create first, start deciding what you want to do the research on. Two, start doing the research, start looking on the databases for these images, and then start making the CSV, create your Omeka site, start uploading the items. All right, do I have any questions right now?
Ah, come on. Oh, no, you're good. I thought I was muted.
Okay. All right. So now I'm going to show you an exhibit. And then after this, I'm going to have you walk you through slowly so that you can, if you have an Omeka site, you can follow me to add an item. So an exhibit, so if you think of like a collection as a museum, you walk into the museum, you see this specific collection maybe by a specific artist, right? The context is limited usually because they'll have like the little placards on the side of the art piece that tells you the title and the date, what it's made out of. Basically, it tells you all the metadata, right? But you could get a docent to contextualize the collection for you, to tell you a little bit more about the artist, who they were, what the style is, what these different pieces mean, what is happening historically, that sort of thing. So an exhibit can do that. You can select a smaller number of the items in your collection and write basically a digital essay about them that explains it. So the Balas y Rugidos one that Carolina mentioned earlier is an exhibit. There is a collection that has several things in the Leonor Villegas de Magnon collection. And then an exhibit that tells us more about her life and her importance for the Mexican Revolution and her connections with Mexican revolutionary leaders. And so that's the kind of more essay, more academic, like scholarly essay type writing happens there. And so if you've added the exhibit builder on plugins, you'll have access to this. And this is also another point and click. I would add an exhibit. I started one right here. So I'm going to edit this. This is what you would find if you clicked add. So I'd come up with the title. And then I would come up with a slug. Now a slug is the end of your URL. It's that back end of that link that changes based on what page you are. So it's kind of like a page name that the computer uses. So you want to come up with something short. You don't want to put any spaces. You don't want to put any special characters. Your user might not even notice what the slug is. So you could use like page 1, page 2. Here I'm going to use film for this exhibit because I know like if I see that, I'll know this is related to the film in the US Latino press. Credits is where you're going to put your name or whoever the author is of this exhibit. So if you had a student or a group of students, maybe they each write their own exhibit. They could write their name there. And then a short description. You know, you probably want to do more than one sentence. I just typed up something really quickly, but you know, like a short paragraph here so that people know what they're going to find in this exhibit. And then tags. These can be Library of Congress subject headings. These can be the tags that you invented. Again, this is something that you would decide, or you would have your students come up with the theoretical, like the reasoning behind coming up with these lists of tags that they're going to use, because people can browse by tag. So you want something that is descriptive and interesting to pull them in. Theme is just what it looks like. So I can change it to, I can set public theme. That means that if I change the colors of the whole site, the exhibit is going to use the same colors, or maybe I want it to look a little different from the whole site. So then I could switch it to something different. And this is just what page is your exhibit going to start on? Is it going to start on this summary page, or is it just going to start on page 1? So it's up to you. And then a cover image, you're going to choose an image from the collection that, you know, best exemplifies it, because it'll be the thumbnail. And then you add pages, and this is also just point and click. And so I've already added one page. I'm going to add another page here. And I'm going to come up with the page title. whatever is related to that. Menu title is just what's going to appear, what the person's going to see. So you might want it to be the same thing. It's up to you. And then you get to pick the content block. This is what that page is going to look like. You can have a file with text. You can have a gallery, which means you have several images. You can have just text or just a file. So I'm just going to click File with Text, add a new content block. And if I click on Add Item, I can look at all the items that I have uploaded to my Omeka. So I'll pick this one. And you can provide a caption. So article, Isabela Corona in La Prensa. So I want to put something descriptive there. And this is where I write, whatever I'm going to write on this page. So this would be, this is information about the history. Of course, it would be a little longer. I'm going to save this. I could save it and add a different page if I wanted to. But I want to see what it looks like. So I can hit public page. I'm going to start from the beginning. So this was the description page. And then I can go to my first page. And then here's that second page that I added. So of course this would be more. And then if you had like images, right here I have a text image, but you could have photographs here. And it would just, you can customize the way you want it to display, like I said, with the gallery.